Balance Theory fam. Welcome to episode 26 of the Balance Theory podcast. I hope you've all had an amazing week so far, wherever this listen session falls, whether it's at the start, mid, or end. Before I dive into today's special guest, I did want to share with you all that obviously from the title of this podcast, you'll be aware that she is a naturopath, but she's actually also my naturopath. She's someone I've worked with very closely over the last few months to get my health optimal. And I do endeavor to only try and interview or discuss things with people that I'm either passionate about or personally believe in myself. So the reason I've been prompted to interview Catherine today is because I think she is incredible. She has a wealth of knowledge and she's taught me a lot about my own health, which I'm so grateful for and am really excited to be able to share with you all today. Before we dive in, and as always, I'll give you my little update of the week, and it actually coincides with, I guess, the work I'm doing with Catherine. So I had a thought that sometimes when we're pushing towards achieving something and there's a lot involved, like it involves a lot of effort, you kind of get this attitude of, oh, it's too hard, or like you wonder why you can't get there. And then you really got to stop and ask yourself, are you putting in the work? So I guess where this stems from is if you've ever worked with any dietitian, nutritionist, or anyone that's sort of prescribing you stuff, sometimes it can feel a little bit onerous. Like, how am I really going to factor all this into my routine? And so at the moment, working with Catherine, I'm taking quite a few things to help rebalance my gut health, get it back in a position where it's restored, repaired, and I guess ready to function at an optimal level. But in line with that, there are quite a few things involved, not only in terms of my stress management, but things I have to take day to day. And a key thing to remember here, and I guess from my little ramble, is that if you are working towards something, you have to put in the work. You cannot expect results if you're not prepared to do max effort. And might I just add, if you're only prepared to put in 50% effort, then only expect 50% results. This goes with your training, your mindset, mental health, physical health, all those things have kind of prompted me to think that your expectation of your results need to be proportionate to the effort you're willing to put in. And as a side note, I am totally prepared to put in all the effort. I am doing all the things that my naturopath is telling me, and the results so far have been according. So I'm very happy about that. Now, what you can expect in today's podcast is a little bit about what naturopathy is, and I guess the whole goal with this alternate natural medicine approach. What I really love about the space and why I think it falls so perfectly into our discussion here on the balance theory is that their approach is very holistic. So it's not like, for example, when you go to a doctor, I've got an itchy elbow, they treat the itchy elbow and that's it. If you go in with a specific condition, naturopaths, or I guess naturopathy, looks at all the areas of your life and how they in combination contribute to or cause this one specific issue, or that could be how the issue is presenting itself. And I love that because it factors in all the areas we focus on: your health, your relationships, your stress, like work-life balance, all those sorts of things, to then treat a physical symptom. On top of that, we also discuss the range of tests available to you if you do want to get a little bit of an indication as to where your general health or your gut is at. We talk about different gut cleansers that you can do and things to be careful of before you dive into it, why you shouldn't be picking up any probiotic off the shelf, things you should be requesting when you get a blood test, supplements you need in your life. And we've even thrown in a couple little biohacks, one which is how to deal with a hangover. I know they're getting worse and worse, and I can't imagine in 5 years what they'll be like. So I'm excited about that one as well. If you do want to reach out to Catherine a little bit more after this podcast, I've popped her email in the show notes below. She's very, very open and so lovely with a wealth of knowledge, so do not hesitate for a second. I hope you love everything discussed today. Don't forget to share this with a friend if you think that they would benefit from it. And lastly, before we dive in, if you haven't joined our Facebook group, search us up, The Balance Theory. Request to join and you can become a part of our ongoing growing community. That's it from me, guys. Now let's enjoy the podcast. Alrighty, Miss Catherine, welcome to the Balance Theory podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome.
Next one.
It's been a little while coming now, so we've known each other for over a good decade now,
Sure,
I'd say.
yeah.
Definitely had a couple underage babies together.
Uh-huh.
So we've been friends long time, and
Yes.
now we're dating brothers.
That's
so
right.
Bonded for life.
That's right, exactly.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know Catherine, she is a naturopath and a damn good one. And I know there's a lot of confusion around what naturopathy is, and a lot of people might not even know how to get into it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey and why you kind of fell into your profession?
Okay, so for me, it all started when I was in high school. I was lucky enough to have a really amazing teacher in hospitality who helped me find what naturopathy was, because I had always had a natural instinct to go towards natural alternatives just in life, not necessarily just in health, but even with cooking. It was a hobby of mine from a young age, and I'd always be of the notion to get fresh vegetables and produce and make something from scratch rather than having something pre-packaged or bought.
Yep.
So that was definitely just within myself from a young age, and I guess this teacher saw that in me, and we had a good relationship. And so when it was time to move into HSE, I asked her, what is it that I can do? How can I use these skills?
In line. Yeah.
Yeah. And she had been seeing a naturopath herself and had brought in some supplements, like some superfood supplements, into our hospitality class. So she was telling me all about it, and I fell in love with it then and found out where I could study it, which I ended up studying at Endeavour College, where I got a bachelor degree in health science, naturopathy.
Nice.
And since then have been practicing and love it.
And how good's that? Like, I mean, you don't really learn about it at school, and unless your parents, I guess, or someone in your family is seeing a naturopath, you know, it's very unlikely you would have heard of it. I think it's still in the alternative medicines.
Yeah.
So for anyone who might still be a little bit confused as to what it is, can you tell us a little bit about naturopathy?
Sure. Yeah.
And I guess how it can help people.
Okay. So it is an alternative medicine, you're right. And it comes from the perspective of first doing no harm to the body. So it's,
you've got your 6 principles,
that's
right?
That's right.
6.
So we work off 6 main principles, the first being first do no harm. And I guess that really clarifies the difference in naturopathy to Western medicine, where we're trying to not only treat but actually prevent illness with doing the least amount of, or without influencing the body in other ways negatively. And so naturopathy as a whole is really just a natural prevention to any illnesses.
Yeah.
So within that, I utilize nutrition and herbal medicine, and that's what I've studied.
Yeah. And I mean, I've come to see personally, you've helped me with a lot of my weird and wonderful issues, which we don't need to go into today. But I do know there's a little bit of a disparity across the board in terms of like the way naturopaths treat. So someone may have gone to one, had a really great experience, and gone to another and not had a great experience. Why is there that difference between naturopaths?
Okay. Yeah, so we don't, as a whole, as an industry, we don't, I guess, see eye to eye. There are a lot of ranges from naturopaths and what qualifications they have behind them. And more new age naturopaths is what I'd call them, do have bachelor degrees, and they fall more so on the side of working alongside doctors, practitioners, and increasing the standards at which we can help someone, and really looking at evidence-based medicine, not just a natural alternative. And as much as we love to utilize traditional medicine, naturopathy is, you know, our roots come from European traditional medicine. So that, therefore, we are always going to be about, you know, floral essences and herbal medicine and what they can do, whether or not there's evidence-based research for it. But at the same time, now we're focusing on, with those at our dispensary, how much of an impact we can make with them, knowing exactly what it can do. And so there are differences in naturopaths who have that perspective and are treating with evidence-based medicine, and those that are not.
Yeah.
And I think that both are great, but it just depends on you and who you kind of mesh well with. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think just from what you're saying, and I guess from conversations we've had as well, there is a little bit more of a divergence between the Western and like more alternative medicine, right? Like I'd say like you're more open to kind of exploring both rather than strictly being on one end of the pole or the other.
Definitely.
Because there's definitely merit within both. And I think, like you said, the more new age ones are more willing to, I guess, explore what works on both sides.
That's right. So I'm not, I wouldn't classify myself as a doctor, and I don't like to look at myself as a doctor, but but some people come to us expecting us to be like that and to be wholly treating them. And I have to remind people that this is something that can be utilized at the best when working together with your GP or with a specialist. And that's where my role sits, at least. And so I'm really all for that. I think that we have a place in our health system that's not completely acknowledged yet. But I think that working beside your GP and first and foremost your primary healthcare practitioner is the best way to go about natural health and prevention and your health in general, depending no matter what your issue is. Yeah,
for sure. And I guess one of the biggest reasons I was drawn to your approach and your industry as well is the approach to health and getting better is very holistic. Mm-hmm. So it's not to say, right, I'm coming in and I've got this certain skin condition on my hand, and you just look at that, right? Like, from my experience, what you do is so holistic. And I think that's where the variances in how different naturopaths treat comes in. But can you talk to me a little bit about that? Because I think it fits so nicely with our framework in the balance theory. We look at, when you're considering your balance, you have to look at your health, your relationships, your area of fulfillment. It's no one size fits all, and it's not a segregation of any one of them. And I know your approach is a little bit similar, so I'd love for you to share, I guess, what that means to you.
Yeah, totally. So when I'm seeing a client for the first time and they come at me with these symptoms that they're having, that's quite overwhelming. They usually are at their wit's end with going through the medical system and maybe have come to me as a last resort. But when I'm listening to their complaint that they have so much focus on, I'm actually taking in my head into account how they're delivering that to me in their speech and in their body language, which might tell me about their emotion and their stress. But also I might ask them about their personal life and what they do for work, and what they're eating, how much time they have to put onto their diet, and all of these things that are going to be influencing this one focus that they have.
Because it could be that, well, I know for a fact, like when I came and saw you, mine was for digestive, but we spoke about my sleep, my stress, my exercise, all these different things. And for someone who hasn't, I guess, sat with a professional who would do that with you, it's really eye-opening, because you almost question, not that I was questioning you, but you're almost like, well, I wonder what that has to do with this. But when you really think about the web of your life and how everything it's all interoperable, right? And so it all overlays on each other, and I'm sure you've had some interesting discoveries with how stress and sleep correlate, or menstrual cycles and all those things. But no, I love that approach, and I think it fits really nicely with everything we say and do on the podcast.
And I think also in saying that, you never know which way a conversation is going to go because of that. But if there was one thing that came up time after time, I'm always interested in your gut and what's going on in your digestion as a whole, because it's that is like the crux that opens the doors to, okay, well, that's going on. What does that mean for this type of organ, or these hormones and these chemical transmitters and so on. So that's probably the one stable and foundational topic that we can always rely on when you come to speak to me.
Well, you've sort of you've led me into my second question, so thanks for that. It's so for anyone listening who's thinking, okay, I might consider seeing a naturopath, what are the things that you can treat or advise on, or like even you specifically, what do you like to treat and advise on?
So I really enjoy everything to do with the gut. That's my love.
Happy place.
Yes, but I've also grown up in a family full of women and female influences, and so I have another love of female health conditions and working amongst other women and empowering them to feel better and be stronger. So I find that, like I said, every single condition that I might see always relates to the gut, and so I'm constantly working in what I love. But my other focus is menstruation and menopause, fertility, those type of things. So that they're definitely on the table to work with. However, you don't have to be ill to come and see me, and you don't have to be healthy also to come and see me. I see a range of conditions, and sometimes, like, I try and encourage people to also seek out naturopaths when they're healthy. a big thing, you know. Prevention is key, and that's shown to be the best way to avoid, you know, serious conditions.
Yeah, and it's about being proactive and not reactive.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So like again, anyone listening who may not have a condition specifically, but you just want some general advice on, and I mean, we'll get into like supplements and stuff like that in a little bit. But definitely there are things you can do or test to, I guess, just work out where you sit in your health. And, you know, it comes down to like what's in your family history, what are you prone to, all these different things that are just good to be in the loop about. But this kind of brings me on to my next question, and that is testing. And like, I've done a few tests with you. I know there's so many tests out there, and, you know, a lot of people are interested in their gut. They've heard about it.
Yeah.
They know, you know, it's the second brain. It has a lot to do with your mood. It's, you know, whenever you're stressed, you feel it in your gut. All these, it's a real big buzzword at the moment. Everyone's talking about the gut.
That's right.
So for anyone listening who wants to know a little bit more about their gut, are there tests people can do that are accessible? And let's talk about ones that are, you know, really accessible to ones that anyone willing to spend a little bit more money can kind of dive into, that would help them understand a little bit more about their current health.
Yeah. So the first thing that you said, are there any tests that are affordable? There definitely are, but I would say that when you're looking at something like the digestive system, it's quite complex in its own natural and beautiful system and way, and some of the affordable tests are not always reliable and effective, so it's not the first ones that I offer.
Yeah.
However, a digestive stool analysis, which is what I often use for that, can range anywhere between $200 to $800.
Yeah, depending on how in depth you want to go, right?
Correct, yes. And so that's, I think, my first and foremost pick.
And what sorts of things can people learn from a stool test?
So the biggest thing that you can learn from it is what your microbiome looks like. So that's the healthy and not so healthy bacteria that we all have in our gut.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to say good and bad, because, you know, the bacteria that we have in our guts are mostly good, but sometimes what happens is, you know, through our years of you know, traveling and going away or just eating fresh produce and things, we are exposed to different bacteria that may allow there to be imbalances, which we call and refer to as dysbiosis in the gut. And that topic is usually that is the main influence, I think, that you can have on your immune system. And so that's why I rely on it so much and look back at where that sits for some people. But yeah, these tests show the species that are currently in your gut and the portions of them. And so you can, once knowing that, you can actually go in and say, well, you know, you've come to a health food store, you want something for your immune system, or this bacteria is going to be much more beneficial for you because it's actually what you need.
Lacking in.
Yeah. Whereas without that test, I'd have to go and look at a probiotic and go, well, how do I know that she might not have too much of this already? Or that, you know, there's actually different bacteria eat different things. And so sometimes within the design, there might be something like lactose, which will be feeding the bad bacteria that they already have. So it really individualizes the treatment for that person by getting those tests, and allows me to help faster as well. Yeah,
and the reason I just want to like pause on this for a sec is because there are so many like gut cleanse diets out there, right? And I think this is so important, especially even like with probiotics, right? And before I actually spoke about it with you, I didn't know any better. You just think like, I'm going to go pick up probiotics because I need, you know, better bacteria, or I feel like my gut's a bit out, I'm just going to have some probiotics. But what a lot of people don't know, which you've actually helped me understand, is that there are different strains of probiotics.
Correct.
And it's only until you do a test like this, you can actually segregate and work out which ones you're lacking in. Because what if you pick up a probiotic off the shelf and you're just adding to the ones you already have? Exactly. You know, you're only making the problem worse. Yes. So for anyone, I guess, listening who thinks they may have a gut problem, like, I would definitely be investing in a test like this, so you actually know, and like you said, it's a lot faster to treat. Just side note, while we're on the topic of like dieting and gut cleanses, what do you think about like, you know, a juice cleanse or like all the fermented food, stuff like that, as a, you know, like a 2-week thing to cleanse your gut? What are your thoughts on that?
I do like it. I do like it. However, some of the ones that are marketed out there are not the gentlest for people who already have issues, and it's usually people who are already feeling unwell in their guts who go to these cleansers. So I would recommend it for people who are mostly feeling well in their stomachs. But if you have a chronic condition where you, like, I see people who they're bellowing over in pain after they eat every meal, and they can't work out why, and going towards like a juice cleanse or a raw food diet for those people would actually be worse, because it's a lot of pressure to digest that fiber and those uncooked raw vegetable fibers, and so that will add more pressure onto them and make them feel more sick. And when there's already so much inflammation due to who knows what at that stage, they could potentially also react to one of those foods or you know, cleanses that they're doing. But I do think like it doesn't have to be so intense. I think light cleanses, appropriate and, you know, logical things like drinking, you know, lemon and water in the morning, you know, and having, you know,
soft little tips you can do.
There's definitely, I don't think there's anything wrong with them, but, you know, charcoal is another one that people come in all the time for and say, you know, I just want to kind of, cleanse my gut and I want to have some charcoal. What do you think? What does it mean? But that can go either way. If someone's coming in and they're constipated, that charcoal might make it worse. I don't know if that person's even having enough fluid and fiber to be able to complement that charcoal. And so I think you should always seek out advice and try and be responsible in the things that you choose when you're doing a cleanse. But I think gentle is best.
Yeah, and it also serves to highlight that there really is no one size that fits all. And you have to be very careful if you're jumping on a fad or a trend. You know, like, I definitely think seeking out the appropriate advice from the requisite practitioner is like
so important.
Yeah. And like I said, like, I wouldn't have known any better had I not had a conversation with you. So I'm hoping everyone listening is getting a lot out of this, because it's really just a flow on from how you've helped me as well. And, you know, just understanding things like that, which you're not taught in school, and they don't advertise it, you know, they just say probiotics are good for you, and that's what you assume. But love all that. Let's go back to the testing now. So we've just spoken about a digestive stool test. What other things people can do to get like a sense of where they're at?
So I think the first thing that anyone should go and request is a general blood test from their GP.
And how often would you say like people should be doing that, just as like to keep on top of things?
I think twice a year. 2 to 3 times a year is a good way to prevent and just to be in the know that everything's kind of going okay. I think if you're asking more than that when there isn't something that's bothering you,
like a symptom,
might be a bit excessive and puts the pressure on our GPs to be doing tests all the time, which they don't actually need to. But it's completely free, so it's affordable, and you can gain a lot of knowledge from a blood test. Hopefully your GP will be able to refer you on if you want to delve into some of the deficiencies that come up. Like sometimes there might be iron or magnesium, which is not always reflective on a blood test, but there'll be something that comes up that's low, right? And what they'll do is they'll either give you a pharmaceutical supplement for that, or if they're thinking, you know, for the long term, they might recommend you to go see a dietitian. That's usually what happens. And I think going in and getting checks regularly is the best way to kind of be on top of that. But myself, when I look at blood tests, if it does get to that point where it's passed on to a dietitian or someone like myself, there are a lot of things that we look at on blood tests that GPs don't always consider because they don't have the time for it. So it's not that they don't want to, it's just not in their job description.
Or I guess they would have like the standard things, and if they're all in check, then that's
right,
their
exactly.
job.
So on a blood test, like, I love that I can see, you know, how much inflammation is in your bloodstream from that.
And you can derive that from just your standard blood test.
That's right. Cool. So obviously it's just one thing to consider, but yes, you can kind of see how alkaline or acidic your bloodstream is from a blood test. And I think like when there are other things that I'm considering, and when I'm treating someone, that might be just a little piece of evidence that puts me in the right direction.
For sure.
But also, like, we do have to remember to not be overly obsessed with the numbers. The numbers on the test, But
because it could just be like, I know, well, remember when I did my blood test and I had like waffles the night before, and I'm like, oh my God, my insulin's going to be through the roof.
That's exactly right. And I think it did come up a little bit high, but it wasn't over the range.
But that's why it's good to do
exactly
2 a year, right? Because
Yes.
then you kind of average it out.
Yes.
And just don't have waffles the night before you go again.
Exactly. Or if you see something come up on your test and you think that that's strange and that's out of the ordinary for you and it's never come up before, then you have the right to request a second test after that.
Yeah,
your
just to make
GP
sure.
might already, be on board to do that regardless. But yeah, that's definitely why it's good to get it multiple times. And also just to have on file, I think it's even good to keep your blood tests and understand, so that if you ever go and see someone, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I was also going to mention, you can get a lot of tests from, I think pharmacies even sell them, but health food stores will always have them, like urine tests.
Yeah.
That will show again how maybe so a lot of people do a keto diet, how much ketones that you're producing.
Yeah.
If you are doing that diet, they're probably about $19.95 or something like that, and they're really affordable. And so if you want to get a bit more information about how hydrated you really are,
Yeah.
or if you are doing a diet like that and want to see if it's successful, then you can go and get those tests, and they're all really affordable. But I don't think that you should just rely on them.
Yeah, for sure.
Obviously, yeah.
They need to be like considered, obviously, in conjunction with a lot of other factors. Just quickly before we move on from here, with the blood test, I know, for example, vitamin D is not always tested, right? It doesn't always come up. So what are some things people might have to request in addition to have on their blood test that won't automatically be there? Because this is good to know as well.
Yeah. So most of our population in Australia are deficient in vitamin D, and so this is the issue. It used to be in combination with the general blood test, and it no longer is. And so most of my clients that I see, I recommend them to ask and request vitamin D on top.
Do they charge extra for that?
They may.
Yeah.
It's at the doctor's
discretion.
That's right. So usually you can ask for it on top, just with a genuine reason as to why, such as, I haven't actually had it tested ever, or it has been a while, or I'm getting sick quite often. They'll usually do it for free for you, but you do have to request it separately. And so I think that's a main one, and probably the first one I'd say to add on to a general blood test. But if your issue or your problem or focus is your strength as a male or your menstrual cycle as a female, you can also have discussion with your GP about that and ask for a hormonal profile to be done. But they all need to be added on as extras.
Yeah. So very good info to know. You have to request for them. Because that's not, I just assumed you'd have vitamin D on your blood test. So it's good to know.
Yeah.
Awesome. Just a quick word from the sponsor of today's podcast. If you haven't paid any attention to the quality of your gym accessories, or feel like the ones you have kill your vibe just a little, then this is for you. ESFit is a brand I've co-founded with my best friend to bring all fitness lovers the confidence to sweat in style. I'm talking considered luxe fitness accessories, ranging from cotton bands that don't roll or dig, to full-size sweat towels that cover you from head to toe and actually don't take up all the space in your bag. The list goes on, but you can check it all out for yourself at esfit.com.au or on Instagram at esfit_. And for all my beautiful balancers, we're offering $15 off at the checkout when you use the code BALANCE. Now, we're going to get into a juicy topic that I love, and that is supplements.
Okay.
Now, everyone who's listening, I want you to just remember we're just having a general discussion about supplements in general. And if you are having any specific symptoms, you will need to seek specific advice. But I'm just going to pick Kat's brain on just in general supplements, because I always love hearing about things that can better you, help your energy and stuff like that. So you did say that most Aussies are deficient in vitamin D. Does that mean you would say that most people should be taking a vitamin D supplement? Is that a stretch?
No, I think that's fair to say. Even when you take a supplement like vitamin D, it depends, like, how much of that are you going to take? And so I think I'd agree to say that most people could take vitamin D, and that would be on the top of the list of supplements I'd recommend people to, have in their cupboard.
Yeah. And just a reminder, we're speaking just in general, just an average Joe Blow who's got no issues.
That's right.
And just wants to know if there are any supplements he should be taking to increase performance, energy, mood, all those things. So let's just say vitamin D could be one of them. What are some other things you find yourself generally recommending to people? That wouldn't do any harm if they would take it either way.
For sure. Magnesium is another one.
my
and
fave.
yeah, you guys would know as well. But magnesium I'm always asked about, and I think that as well, like I feel very strongly about that, just the same as with vitamin D, because we're not getting enough of it in our fruits and vegetables because our soil is so overturned that there's nothing left of the magnesium in there. And we're also, you know, the pesticides and other chemicals that are sprayed upon them are diminishing the nutrients that are in there. So the quality is entirely different. And
so what does magnesium do?
It relaxes your muscles. So magnesium, that's one of the things it does. It does a lot of things in our body, but first and foremost, I think most people come in looking for it to relax their nervous system, and by doing that, it relaxes the muscles. So I think that Angelo probably could describe this better than me, but you know, our nerves overlap over our muscles at the joints, and in that way that it's formed, they actually have a direct effect on the contractions of our muscles.
Yeah.
And so if we're also stressed mentally, emotionally, physically, our nervous system will know about it, and it's utilizing magnesium to cope with that stress.
Yeah.
And so then our muscles become, you know, fatigued, and then that might end up in cramping, menstrual cramps, whatever it may be, headaches.
Yeah.
All to do with, you know, your nervous system and your musculoskeletal system.
Yeah, for sure. And with magnesium, would you say that, because I always think this as well, is it better to have it as a tablet or powder? Like, is there a difference, or does it depend on the brand?
Yeah, it does always depend on the brand, but I do prefer powder just because, the dosage is so much higher that you can get in a powder versus a tablet. And also powders across all supplements absorb more efficiently. So if you can, you know, tolerate the taste, they do a pretty good job at, you know, flavoring them these days.
Yeah.
But some people still don't like it. However, if you can, powders are always better, I think. And I think especially with magnesium, because the molecule's quite large, and so the tablets end up being, you know,
they're pretty
kind of
big,
like horse tablets almost. So
people if you're worried about tablets, you'll be glad to hear that the powder's better.
Yeah.
But like, little tip from me, you can whack it in your smoothie.
Yeah,
and normally it's like just a little teaspoon or something, and you don't even really taste it, especially if it's like fruity already.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's one way to get away with taking a lot of supplements in one hit. You can even actually chuck tablets in there. I met someone who
I haven't tried that.
Yeah, I've met people who because they just take heaps of tablets, they just chuck them all in their smoothie.
Wow.
So that it's just easier rather than chugging them all down after 5 glasses of water.
Well, I mean, in saying that, there are some tablets and or nutrients that are probably better taken in tablet form or capsulated, so that they actually are reaching your digestive system. But
look, I couldn't imagine putting like a fish oil tablet in a smoothie. I'm talking more like the ones that are like, you know, like the magnesium one.
Yeah,
it looks like it's like
or a multivitamin powder, something like that. You know,
sure.
Capsule or tablet, whatever.
Yeah. And with magnesium, because you know, I've weaved and waned, and when I've taken it before bed, I've taken it first thing in the morning. Like, when do you reckon is best to take it, or it doesn't really matter?
If it's just magnesium in the formula, I think it's quite nice to take it before bed, but you can take that at any time of the day.
Yeah.
But I would say before bed is nice, because it's kind of when we're going through our restoring phase of our body. We're kind of detoxifying and getting ready for the next day. And repairing. So I think nighttime is good because it helps us to sleep, and also our body's needing it at that point. But definitely if you're in a job where the demand is high for you to be quite focused, then, you know, a morning time is also really good, just to keep you steady and to be able to cope with the stress you're about to be hit with. Yeah,
for sure. And just to bust any myths, you don't need to be training to be taking magnesium. You definitely get benefits from it if you're on the lower end of the active spectrum or not active at all. Like, you could still get a lot of benefits, right?
For sure. I think that the elderly population probably could benefit from magnesium the most, and they're usually like, you know, they're not, a lot of them are active, but they're definitely not going to be the most active in our population. So I think that whether you're training or not, it's a really important nutrient to take, and you can become intuitive with it as well. Like, I always, if you're having signs of deficiencies like tension headaches or really bad menstrual cramps, you might need to take that, you know, for a duration of 1 to 3 months at a good, appropriate high dose. But once you can see the difference between feeling nourished from that magnesium, which you would when you take it, you can have it in your shelf and go to it when you need, because it is like what I said, we are utilizing it in the 21st century so quickly, more so than we have ever needed before. So I think it is something that is good to try out, and then, you know, find that intuition with it, and take it when it's required and needed.
Awesome. Just before we move on from supplements, I do want to ask about the famous Arma Force. Now, it's something I've used before, and, you know, it's something a lot of people go to when they're sick. So I just want to chat a little bit about your opinion on it, and when people are sick, what is the best thing to do?
Okay. Yeah, so...
and not sick as in COVID, sick as in like a flu, your common cold.
Yeah, just cold and flus. Arma Force is great. I think it was one of the first formulas that a lot of people had success with building up their immune system, and it has got some beautiful antiviral herbs in there, echinacea, and also it's got vitamin C, zinc, and sorry, mind blank just off the top of my head. I think it's elderberry. Yes. Olive leaf. Olive leaf. That's
yes.
Right. Yes. And so it's a really beautiful formula that a lot of supplement companies have actually now worked off of. So you can get formulas like it everywhere, but it helps to build your immune system whilst also warding off viruses and pathogens that you come across in your day-to-day. But it's probably, for some people, taking two capsules 3 times a day, which is the acute dose, is a lot for some people. And so when you fall
and they're not
sick,
small tablets.
No,
either.
They're not small. So like you could do 2 a day as a prevention in the morning, you know, that's great. But if you fall sick, or if you feel like something's coming on, I would recommend more so something like a high dose vitamin C powder that would just be absorbed so efficiently, and you know, 1,000 to 6,000 units a day, you know, in that day that you're feeling unwell, to actually avoid getting sick. That would be probably more effective than Arma Force. But straight away after you're kind of, you know, feeling like the brunt of it's done, then you go back onto Arma Force with 2 a day and try and get your immune system to build back up. Yeah, that's right. So
and for anyone just listening, units is not capsules. It's there's an amount of units
milligrams.
per like teaspoon or whatever. That's normally just on the front of the
so it
packet.
might be milligrams or international units, so on. So magnesium's in form of milligrams, so that's 1,000 to 6,000 milligrams of vitamin C.
Perfect. Now I want to talk a little bit about the menstrual cycle, and I guess, like, obviously as women, there's a big difference when, you know, it gets close to that time of month and when it's not. And so and I know this is an area you enjoy working in as well. So just chat to me a little bit about your experience working with women who might have really bad period pain, or, you know, just want to circumvent that time of the month and kind of ease their way through it. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So with most of the clients that I have, actually, it's just happened to be that I've asked them a question, as I usually would, asking about their health history, and ask, you know, what their menstrual cycle is like, and when they have their period, what their cramping or their PMS or those type of things are like. And they might say it's quite bad, or excruciating bad, or they have to take Panadol, you know, multiple times a day throughout the whole cycle or before. But it wouldn't be their first complaint. A lot of women actually don't realize that you don't have to live with that much pain per month at their cycle. And so that's, I think, the most interesting thing about menstrual, you know, the menstrual cycle as a whole with women. I don't think that I think that we're used to sometimes
just accept it for what it is. So what are some of the things like you do to help, or you can offer, like, I suppose again, like, this is obviously needs to be tailored and individualized to the person, but just in general, like, how can people, I guess, get some help during that time, or ease things on a general sort of point of view? So
definitely there are some obvious supplements that you can take to help, but when you would see the effect of those supplements are probably 100 days before you would actually have your bleed.
Right.
So if you were to start taking something like I prescribe a lot of, speaking of magnesium, for cramping or your period in general, you won't be able to see those full effects on your period until 100 days.
Like 3-4 months.
3-4 months until your next cycle. That's right. So magnesium's a big one, because as we were just talking about our muscles, our actual female hormone cycle utilizes magnesium a lot to relax our hormones, and we have, you know, mostly as women, progesterone, estrogen, we have some testosterone, etc. But magnesium has the ability to keep us calm and to promote, you know, GABA and our relaxation hormones. And so something like that is, I think, a number one crucial thing for your period. But also second to that, iron's really important. If you're iron deficient or anemic, you will have sometimes a heavier bleed, or your pain will be more induced, or you'll have poor sleep at that point when you're menstruating. So they're two big things. But another one would probably be for menstrual cycles as a whole, if you are not having a regular cycle, Vitex, and that's a herbal supplement. So it's Vitis Angus castus, and that's the herbal name for it, and it's found at vitamin stores all over Australia, and you can always pick that up and trial it on your cycle if you feel like it's not regular, or if you feel like it's not long enough of a cycle. But I wouldn't go further than that in terms of treating or trying something
without getting advice. And again, all these things are trial and error. And on the podcast I did last week on morning routines, like there's a lot of info out there, and there's a lot of really beneficial things you can do, but it doesn't mean all of them are going to work for you.
Correct.
Right? And our cycles are different every single month.
That's right.
And as you grow older, they also change, you know, I'm sure in severity, longevity, all those things.
That's right.
It's something to be aware of, you know, options you have available to you. But again, it's about trialing and testing and finding the right balance and what works for you. So
yeah, that's right. And like, you don't know if you're, you know, experiencing, you know, any symptom in your menstrual cycle, whether that's actually related to a severe condition like endometriosis or polycystic ovaries. So first you have to find out, you know, what is existing right now, where is my cycle at, which a lot of people don't know. And I think first just informing yourself, whether it's with an app to find out what your cycle length is like. It's first and foremost, you have to see, you know, am I having a healthy cycle in general, and then you can go from what to do after that.
Yeah, and these are all things you can just do to better your health or to further investigate your health. If you're someone who's listening and you feel like you're just smooth sailing, cruising through life, and you know, you just might want these little tips and tools to just take it to the next level or just understand more about your body, I don't think it's ever a bad idea.
Correct.
So all great info. Like, I've already taken away heaps from today, and we're not even done yet. Now, I wanted to ask you about, you know, like there's a lot going around about biohacking as well. And I just wanted to ask you if you had any like little tips or life hacks that, you know, relates to the work you do.
Yeah. So I think that probably one of the ones that I enjoy the most would be that, you know, everyone has an alcoholic beverage from time to time, whether it be like a glass of wine with dinner. But if you have any symptoms, if you have any symptoms of like sinusitis or you know, headaches the morning after or that night, you can kind of try to avoid them in that moment, which I would recommend like a liver supplement. So that would usually consist of some B vitamins, with maybe a herb like St. Mary's thistle to help our livers do what they're already going to do, which is to metabolize that alcoholic substance, but you're providing the nutrients for it specifically so it can work more efficiently, and so then you're going to be metabolizing that faster, feeling better quicker. Or in the issue that some people have allergies to alcohol, and it induces their histamine response and they get congestion in their nose. You know, again, taking an antihistamine, maybe a natural one, or some high dose vitamin C could also, you know, stop you from actually getting those symptoms entirely. So that's one of my favorites, because I hate when the next day, if I wake up, I'm still carrying the next, like, you know, last night's.
Well, I'm just thinking it's taken me to get you on the podcast for you to give me your Sunday morning cure. No wonder you can get up fresh and go to work all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the best thing.
We need to find that in the cupboard.
But, you know, there are a few others. I always like cacao powder, whether it's as a substitute to your coffee or if it's in addition, you know.
I've actually heard about this.
Yeah,
so what
beautiful.
Are the benefits?
It's got a lot of antioxidants in there, and again, it's got magnesium and some other minerals. So what I feel from it is that I get some energy from it, because it also contains caffeine, but it's good for us because it contains a lot of antioxidants. And then also the magnesium, I think, balances out that spike of energy that you get with caffeine. And so if I'm going and starting my day and I have, 3 or 4 clients ahead of me, having that instead of a coffee keeps me level-headed and calm the whole time.
Nice.
And I think that's a really nice superfood to either add in or substitute to your morning coffee or drink that you have.
Chocolate lovers, listen up,
sure.
That's a good one. Any like brands that you particularly or personally use that you really like? Because I know you have like the hot chocolate
so many.
Are they sachets?
Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? From just Coles and Woolworths, just the
or
regular
do you guys
ones?
have ones that you pre-make or no?
No. You probably can find something like that.
Yeah.
They do offer them, but I just find just raw cacao powder. So whether that, there's one brand called Power Superfoods, they're quite good, and Loving Earth, they're a little bit more fancy because they're a chocolatier, so they actually make all raw chocolates, and
yes, they're very good.
Yeah, they've got great quality cacao, but usually as long as it's raw and so it's not heat treated, then that's a good quality cacao powder.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think we've got time for one more question, and I just wanted to know, out of my own personal curiosity, what's the most interesting case you've sort of treated or dealt with, I should say.
Yeah. So there have been, I think, a lot for me, because I find there's so much interesting things that come up when you're dealing with people, and every time it's different.
And because you're, I guess, looking at it from such a macro point of view, you're looking at all their lifestyle factors. Like, of course, you'd never have 2 of the same. Yeah,
exactly. But there is one that stands out, and I'm not going to say any personal information, but this was a male, a middle-aged male, and he had been experiencing a condition called MEN, and it's multiple endocrine neoplasia.
I was about to make a joke and be like, don't they all have that?
Yeah, that's right. Look, to be honest, when he contacted me, he asked me, had I worked with anyone with this condition? And I straight out said, no, I hadn't. Not that told me I couldn't or stopped me. I said, my rules and principles apply regardless.
Yeah.
And I might be able to offer you 20% of reduction of your symptoms, but if you're at the point where you need even that, like, I'm happy to offer that. I would like to go further, but so anyway, I ended up seeing him.
So what is the condition? Sorry.
So it's an autoimmune condition that's that is dominated by your hormones that are producing benign tumors in your organs all in your body.
Oh wow.
And there's a range of symptoms: fluid retention, fatigue, weight gain, lots of things that come with it. But this was the first time I was dealing with it, and I found it interesting because he had gone through a lot of specialists who were trying to help him, and he had been provided some medication that he was taking. Some made him feel sick. He wasn't sure if it was helping. He'd still, as an overall, he was still feeling extremely unwell day to day, and it had started to make an impression in his mood and energy. And I found it interesting because it was something that was probably outside of my comfort zone, but by doing what I usually do with the same thoughts and principles, I was able to alleviate symptoms for him, which he hadn't felt differences from in the last 7 years.
Wow.
And that was only from about a week of taking his supplements.
That's insane.
That I had prescribed. So that was really rewarding.
That was like a little yes moment.
Yeah, because you can always prescribe and advise people to do all these great things, but it also depends on what they're willing to do and what's realistic to go back and then follow. And so I needed, in that situation, he was reluctant to take a lot of things, and he felt like if it was too hard, he may not be able to do it. And so we compromised, and I didn't feel as confident because I would have loved to give this, and that too, but I couldn't. And so with the few things that I had chosen for him, he was able to see a dramatic difference and had rung me back a week later to say, let's go ahead. Yeah, I'm in it for the long run, however long it takes. And so that was really cool and interesting, and just another eye opener to say, like, to reconfirm the thing that what I'm doing, that it actually can influence anyone in any condition, whether it's just supporting a specialist or whether it's they're taking a new perspective of it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your time with me today. I've been dying to ask you all these questions, more than what we can over the dinner table on Monday nights. But if anyone wants to connect with you or perhaps even work with you, come see you in the future, where's the best place they can kind of reach out or get in touch?
So I am currently working in a clinic that's affiliated with Mr. Vitamins. It's called the Wellbeing Clinic. But if anyone would like to contact me or, ask me any questions or inquire about a consult, I'd be happy to chat, and I have an email.
Which I can put in the show notes below.
Exactly, info@catherineadelle.com. So you can, let them know about that. But otherwise, I think ask around, and if you want to see a naturopath, I might not be the specific person for you, but research, about them and what degrees or what they've done in their past and who they've worked with, and see what's right for you.
Yeah, I think that's a nice way to leave it as well. Like, just do your research and see who you connect with at the end of the day. You're gonna have to trust this person, work with them, and so at the end of the day, it's all about what's the right fit for you. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, and
no problem. Thank you.
Look forward to seeing, I guess, where your practice takes you in the next few years.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you again.
And that's a wrap for this week, Balancers. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found this episode useful to some degree in either steering or determining your definition of balance today. As always, the biggest compliment for us is if you share this episode with someone who you feel might need it, or if you're on Spotify, you can click follow, or on Apple Podcasts, you can leave a rating or review. If you have any suggestions for up and coming podcasts, feel free to shoot us a DM or an email. Our Instagram is @TheBalanceTheory and our email is thebalancetheorypodcast@gmail.com. Otherwise, you've always got the option of subscribing to our mailing list. We only send you email reminders when the episodes drop, so you get them fresh out of the oven. No annoying spam, we promise. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and until next time, stay balanced.